Well, hello everyone! The year is 2025 and it's officially the year of the tier list. I'm back once again with the third installment of these games' tier lists. Of course, still as comically late in the year as always. My takes may not always be the most popular, but as long as people are willing to watch, even out of spite, then I'm happy to keep making more, despite how insanely long they take to make. Before we start the list proper, a quick overview. I played 10 games last year, or rather 9 games in a DLC, but what the heck, I wouldn't be the first to think about giving a DLC Game of the Year. Ironically, that DLC was the only thing I played from 2024. All of the other games I played came out 2023 or earlier. In some cases, quite a bit earlier. As per usual, all games are being ranked with 4 key criteria in mind. First off is the gameplay. Not much explanation needed here. I'm looking for games that are fun to control, clever with their mechanics, and keep me engaged throughout their runtime. Second is story. With this, I'm not only looking for stories that have compelling themes and narratives, but also how those themes and narratives are expressed through gameplay. As per usual, I'll keep the spoilers pretty light. Next, music. If you've seen my past tier list videos, you know I love to nerd out about video game music. While not as stacked as last year's list in the soundtrack department, this year's set of games still had a strong showing, and you can bet I'll be blabbing a lot on this topic throughout the video. Last is presentation. This is sort of a catch-all category, though I'll mainly use it to talk about graphics, art direction, UI, and sound design. In these 4 categories, there are a total of 12 medals up for grabs for games that I feel excelled in these areas. New to this year, however, I'm introducing 6 new medals. First is Best Voice Acting. I've talked at length about some incredible vocal performances in past tier lists, so this time I'm codifying that into an actual medal. This medal will go to just one voice actor who I thought nailed their character. And speaking of character, there's gonna be another medal for that, Best Character. Next, a medal for Best Level, a particular sequence in one game that especially stood out to me. And alongside that one, a medal for the Best Boss Fight. Of course, being the VGM aficionado that I am, you know I have to have a medal for the best individual song in any game that I played. And to round out the medals, there's gonna be one for Best Water. This is a very important topic to me. Alright, the lengthy intro is about over. Let's get this tier list started. Pokemon and I have had a rough history as of late. It used to be my favorite series as a kid, but my enthusiasm sort of fell off during the rough transition from handheld to console. Sword and Shield were the first ever mainline Pokemon games that I flat out skipped out of apathy for the franchise. I did have a pleasant experience with 2022's Legends Arceus, of which you can find my review in my 2022 tier list video, but that doesn't mean I was all too keen to give the Gen 9 games coming later that year much of a shot. Especially when, at that time, I was preoccupied with playing better games in my humble opinion. That all changed though for one big reason. See, the Paldea region of Scarlet and Violet is mainly based off of Spain. And funny thing about that, I studied abroad in Spain last year. I mean, I couldn't not play the Spanish Pokemon games while I was in Spain, the opportunity was just too good. And if there was ever a time for me to get back into Pokemon, this was it. Just one small problem though, and I'll say it charitably. The game's far from perfect. While they played around with the idea in Sword, Shield, and Legends Arceus, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are Game Freak's first real open-world games. Other than one story-gated area, the whole map is there for you to explore from the very beginning. Unfortunately, Scarlet and Violet fall into a pretty common pitfall when it comes to open-world games. The world is boring. Like, visually, there's nothing enticing for me to seek out and explore. I gave Breath of the Wild a fair amount of flack in last year's video, but at the very least, when I step out from the Shrine of Resurrection, I can already spot a ton of cool looking stuff that makes me want to engage with this world. Whereas Paldea looks incredibly dull in comparison. Heck, even the spoiler endgame area was a bit of a letdown. Despite the great music, visually it just sort of looks like a plain grassy area with some shimmery effects. Considering the amount of money Pokemon games make, there's just not any valid excuse for the worlds to look so boring when Game Freak's baby brother Monolith Soft is over here putting out worlds that look like this and this and this. And still on a Nintendo Switch, mind you. Art direction aside, the stuff you do in this world while traveling from point A to point B also isn't that exciting. Your only real option is to catch Pokemon, though without the streamlined mechanics from Legends Arceus, capturing Pokemon on its own just isn't as much fun in my opinion. I can maybe excuse an empty open world if it's fun to traverse, like the Insomniac Spider-Man games, but there just isn't much to do in the open world of Scarlet and Violet. Remember when Pokemon had cool dungeons and environmental puzzles? I can't help but feel disappointed those have been shelved in favor of this uninspired open world format. And it's not like they saved all the interesting stuff for the destinations either. The cities lack much to do beyond stuff for the main story. You can't even go inside most buildings. Shops and restaurants are reduced to mere menus instead of explorable areas with cool things to do like in past Pokemon games. Sure, Game Freak may never make a minigame better than Voltorb Flip, but at least give us something to do in towns other than shop and progress the story. One thing I will give the cities of Paldea though, the references to real Spanish cities were quite nice. I want to briefly talk about Pokemon battles. Scarlet and Violet introduce a new mechanic called terrestrialization, where you can change the type of one Pokemon during battle, shifting around its weaknesses. On paper, it's actually kind of cool, but the way it was implemented in game left a lot to be desired in my opinion. You only have to face it during story-relevant battles, and for most of those, they don't do anything unexpected with it. For example, the gym leaders always terrestrialize their final Pokemon, but instead of changing it to some unexpected type, they change that Pokemon into the same type as the rest of their team, meaning that you don't have to change your strategy or anything. The same moves that are good against the rest of their team will still be good against their ace. Terrestrialization also comes with this really long animation that's meant to hype up your opponent's final Pokemon, which feels quite vestigial when you just finish it off with one hit. That ties into my next criticism with Pokemon battles. The battles go by pretty slowly. Now, maybe this is just a symptom of playing Octopath Traveler 2 with its lightning speed battle animations right before starting Pokemon, but man, do Pokemon battles take some time. On one unlucky occasion, because of my Espathra's ability Opportunist, I had to sit around and watch 30 seconds of nothing but stat buffs. It's not like these animations are particularly worth watching. Most moves are still on the quality of Twinkle Tackle from Sun and Moon. It's not like there weren't talented animators working on these games. When it comes to story cutscenes, they absolutely lock in. I hope they get more time to refine battle animations in future games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet feature 3 different storylines. First is Victory Road, in which you tackle the 8 standard Pokemon gyms to become a champion alongside your self-assigned rival, Nemona. While I'm not the #1 Nemona fan in the world, that honor goes to... She's easily my favorite character in the game. Nemona has this infectious, impatient personality, and she steals every scene she's a part of. This storyline is pretty standard for Pokemon games, so there's not much to say here, though it does go out with a bit of a whimper. The fight against the top champion Gita is kind of a joke. On the good side, we got Larry! Let's go Larry! Everyone get it for Larry! While tackling Pokemon gyms, you can tackle the Path of Legends storyline, hunting down 5 giant Titan Pokemon with the help of Arven, and working remotely one of Arven's parents, depending on your version of the game. Arven's nice, and I am sympathetic to his story, even if he's kind of useless as a partner in battle. Finally, there's the Starfall Street storyline, where you fight against Team Star, a group of delinquents from your academy. Honestly, I liked this one the most. The scenes with all the Team Star bosses were genuinely endearing, and I enjoyed their story quite a bit. Helping with the operation are Penny, a girl you find targeted by Team Star's bullying. There's also Cassiopeia, an anonymous hacker who you never get to see in person. I wonder who that could be. Also involved in this plotline are Director Clavel, the head of your academy, as well as this cool guy with a great pompadour. I wonder who that could be. Overall, the 3 plotlines are fine, but as with most other things in this game, they're hindered by the open world format. Because you can tackle things in any order, characters can't grow or evolve until the very end. Imagine Pokemon Black and White without the ride with N on the Ferris wheel, or the scene where Bianca's dad begs her to come back home. I can't help but feel that there's a lot of missed opportunities with this otherwise great cast. Thankfully, once you finish the 3 main storylines, there's a great finale sequence where you get to see all the characters finally interact and face down a bigger threat. There's basically no build-up to the finale outside of Arven's questline, and tonally it's very different from the rest of the game, but it was still a pretty cool way to cap it all off. The music team for Scarlet and Violet is a little unusual. We have the usual suspects like Masuda and Go Ichinose, but then we also have the addition of Toby Fox and Celestia. What? The music is overall quite nice. Generally, I think the field themes and town themes aren't super memorable, but they do the trick. The battles are where I personally found some of the best stuff. I love how the gym battles have this dynamic track that starts off pretty chill. As the battle goes on, the music ramps up. Until the gym leader finally sends out their terastallized ace, and the music hits an invigorating climax. And while I said the field themes weren't super memorable, there is one, composed by Toby Fox, that really delivers. To end off, I've already sort of covered presentation while talking about the world, but I can't not talk about the technical issues. Thankfully, I played Scarlet after the patches, so I didn't have to experience the worst of it. But that doesn't mean there aren't still some glaring technical problems in the game. I particularly enjoyed this one. Normally in raid battles you get some flavor text saying something like Muck's armor was broken, but for me it would just say Muck. I was pretty hard on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet in this review, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. I had a good time traveling around with my team of 5 Paldean natives and a Galarian expat. I learned some more Spanish by naming all of my Pokemon portmanteaus of Spanish words, even if some of them were a little stupid. I appreciate the attempt at an open world because it proves that Game Freak is trying to do something new with Pokemon. And these games do hold some personal significance to me because again, I got to play them while I was in Spain. But sadly, these games were just outmatched by everything else I played. I look forward to trying some of the new Pokemon games on the horizon. And hopefully they might be able to finally escape D tier. Side Order is Splatoon 3's roguelite DLC campaign. To save the free will of everyone in Inkopolis, you need to confront Overlorder, who resides on the 30th floor of the Spire of Order. You start your climb incredibly weak, but floor by floor, you'll amass color chips that give you special abilities. Be careful though. If you die, you'll have to start over again from the very beginning. Side Order was my first ever roguelite, save for my time playing Johnny Upgrade back on Cool Math games. And generally, I'd say it was a pretty fun time. There are 5 different types of floors you'll have to complete as you climb the spire. Portal levels are pretty straightforward. You just need to destroy all the portals spawning enemies around the map. These are some of the most fun in my opinion. They can get very chaotic, but if you put together a good build, it feels great taking out all the portals in a short fashion. You could also get an Infinity Ball level. Like the sinister 8 balls from Splatoon 2's Octo Expansion DLC, you'll need to guide them toward a goal. But thankfully now they don't go off the edge, and this guy isn't here to blow you up upon failure. I didn't hate the 8 ball levels in Octo Expansion, but the Infinity Ball levels of Side Order are certainly a lot less stressful. My least favorite level type is the Alamambo levels. You have to track down and kill these guys who will try and run away from you at the first sign of gunfire. You can trap them in a pool of your own ink, though often you just sort of have to get lucky that they run in the right direction. The turbine tower levels are some of the more difficult ones. You need to shoot this tower to get it to travel along a rail to its final destination. Before you can hit a checkpoint, the tower will slow down dramatically, and you'll have to stay in one place and shoot it for a while. These checkpoints add a lot to the turbine tower levels, honestly. I'd like the mix-up between staying mobile next to the moving tower versus having to find a safe place to stay still and fire at it. I only wish that the tower's speed wasn't capped. These would be a lot more fun if you could just go a bit faster. The last level type, home to the hardest levels in Side Order, are these zone protection levels. You have to ink a zone, sometimes multiple, and keep them all in your color. while enemies swarm you and your zones with their own ink color. If you lose a zone, getting it back is difficult, especially levels with multiple zones. These levels are kind of weird for me. If you aren't in control of the situation, you get overwhelmed super easily and it doesn't feel fair. But if you are in control of the situation, you don't really have to think during these levels, you just sort of fall into a routine. The one exception to this, in my opinion, is the infamous level Cruel Sisyphean 8-shaped floor. This one is hell your first few times, but once you understand how it works, it's actually really fun. Now, this DLC is a roguelite after all. It's meant for you to keep replaying it over and over with different builds to keep things fresh. There are quite a few things in side order to introduce variety. At the start, you choose from one of 11 different weapons. There are plenty of upgrades to choose from, some of which that only show up when using certain weapons. There are some standard options like increasing your fire rate or movement speed, along with some more fun experimental ones like giving your charger aimbot, making enemies drop bombs when you defeat them, or letting your companion robot Pearl, yes, this Pearl, drop an ink strike on enemies. Honestly, I don't really like making a Pearl bot build, she sort of plays the game for you. Luck builds are super fun though, you can rack up tons of funny combos with enemy drops and… Late into your run, you'll start to see danger levels appear throughout your level select. You're free to avoid them, but the longer you avoid them, the more of them you'll start to see until you eventually need to take one. There are sadly only 6 danger effects, but they add an interesting layer of strategy. On the flip side, you could also find a bonus level. These might give you an extra condition that could double your winnings, or they could fill in the remaining spots of your palette with temporary upgrades for one floor. The last big random element are the bosses. Floors 10 and 20 will have one boss randomly selected from a group of 3. I welcome all of these random elements. They keep runs feeling fresh and different from one another. Unfortunately, and this is going to be a common point of criticism I have with side order, what's here is good, but it isn't enough. There are only 98 unique floors, and you're going to play about 25 of them per run, meaning that you'll start running into familiar rooms in no time. I like that they all feel distinct from one another, but it just feels like there should be more, considering the devs want you to do 12 runs to unlock the full story. The same goes for the bosses. It's crazy to me that there are only 3 different bosses barring the final boss at the top of the tower. And frankly, the bosses aren't that great either. Pinging Marciale just runs away from you when you shoot him, and the enemy AI for the parallel cannon is laughably bad. Asynchronous Rondo gets a pass though. This one's real fun and actually feels like a threat even if you can cheese it with longer range weapons. The disappointing bosses tie into another issue I have with side order. It's way too easy. Roguelites are meant to be brutally difficult at the beginning before you start to unlock permanent upgrades, but it's not uncommon to hear people beating side order on their very first attempt. For me, it only took 4. Compare that to Hades, a better roguelite I'll talk about later in this video, which took me 21 runs. Rolling the credits after your first side order clear feels really undeserved, especially if you've only been playing it for an hour and a half. The floors in side order tend to be on the shorter side. For most of the objectives, you can usually clear a floor in less than 10 seconds. And once you beat the game, there aren't any options to make subsequent runs harder, only easier. This is how I feel the difficulty curve should have been, with difficulty scaling with your progress until it's a good match for you. But the difficulty curve of side order just looks like this instead. The game makes one attempt at fixing this through the risky rewards upgrade, raising your potential earnings the fewer upgrades you use. But this is far from the best way to farm currency. You'll actually get more doing it on a run with more upgrades to ensure getting certain chips. After a while, side order runs just become mindless. There's no challenge behind them. Splatoon is not a series I go to for good storytelling, but usually campaigns in Splatoon games have some entertaining dialogue and fun character interactions. Side order has some of that, but again, there just isn't enough. The story happens a little at the beginning and mostly at the end, which frankly is the usual case for Splatoon games, though they often fill the gaps with lore and flavor text. You'll unlock the lore very slowly. You'll probably only have seen this much by the time the credits roll. And there isn't very much unique dialogue between the characters. After just a few runs, you'll start seeing the same few conversations over and over again. Again, compare that to Hades, where even after 50 runs, you might still see some new dialogue. Side order felt pretty disappointing in that department. And the biggest story fumble of all, Pearl and Marina didn't get married, on camera, live! Think about how peak that would have been. Guys, you had one job. Side Order didn't disappoint in the music department at least. Of course, this is Splatoon we're talking about here, so the music is weird. But I found a lot of it to be a good weird. Often level themes flip from having a smorgasbord of sound that will make you go, what the fuck? Until they hit you with the most heavenly beat drop imaginable. The boss themes also go incredibly hard, way beyond what these lackluster fights deserved. Like, check out the Parallel Cannon theme. Not a great boss, but the music? Oh, that hits the spot. Like the rest of the game, Splatoon 3 Side Order is dripping with style. It's very different than the base game, which had this international punk celebratory chaos theme. Instead, Side Order embraces the opposite, ripping out the color of the world in favor of a sanitary white monotony, with the enemies having this classical music theming. But as you start to fight back, color starts returning to the world until the final boss room, which looks gorgeous. I love how the palette you place your upgrades in is themed after a launch pad you'd use to make music. It just works so well. And hilariously, I love how the story is told to you through Marina's Instagram story. They do such a great job of integrating basic lore dumps into the world of Splatoon. Side Order is far from perfect, but it's fun.
It's fun to assemble an aimbot charger, or a high knockback slosher, or a max speed brush.
The lack of difficulty is a shame, but at the same time, it's also kind of fun to do runs without needing to turn my brain on sometimes. I'm open to seeing another Splatoon roguelite sometime, but I think if they do that, the devs ought to take a closer look at what made other titans in the genre stand the test of time. If they can finally make a roguelite to rival Johnny Upgrade on cool math games, then maybe, just maybe, it'll all have been worth it. In Endling, Extinction is Forever, you play as the mother fox to your 4 kits, the last remnants of your species on a polluted Earth. Environmental details reveal a struggle to protect the planet, lost to corporations who have no qualms destroying it to get what they want. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against you, it's your job to feed your kits and keep your family alive, or risk the permanent extinction of your kind. And if staying alive wasn't already a challenge, a human scavenger has abducted one of your kits, so you also need to worry about finding it and reuniting your family. Every night is an opportunity to scavenge the area for food, and when possible, uncover the whereabouts of your missing kit. Be careful though. If you stay out after the sun rises, humans will start to appear and block the way back to your den. Endling plays like a side-scroller, which is kind of strange considering the map suggests you're exploring a 3-dimensional world. Your options are go left, right, or essentially switch the plane you're on so you can go down a different path. Truth be told, I never really got the hang of navigation in this game. It's kind of hard to figure out where you're headed when you keep flipping planes, and the lack of control you get over the camera doesn't help. Navigating the world of Endling requires you to pull out your map every 10 seconds to make sure you know where you're going, which is a real shame, because this game's otherwise great atmosphere and music are so often interrupted because of some gameplay quirks. When the night is ending and it's time to get back to your den, or when you're separated from your kits, icons show up to guide you to your destination. I wonder if the whole game might have improved if the event markers that show up on your map were also available to see during gameplay. It doesn't help that nights only last about 5 real-life minutes. You're very limited in what you can accomplish each night, and making the world so difficult to navigate was somewhat frustrating for me. Although perhaps, considering the subject matter of Endling, that experience was intended, which I can respect. The weird side-scrolling gameplay was really my one big complaint with Endling, so now I'd like to spend some time showering it with praise. Toward the start of the game, you're conditioned to think that food is abundant and easy to find, so I didn't give much thought to the hunger mechanic initially. That was until night 19, when for some reason I was having trouble finding anything for my kids to eat, and my hunger bar was rapidly diminishing. At the start of night 20, I decided to run back to the area I explored near the beginning of the game, just to be hit with the realization, of course there's no food here. The entire forest had been chopped down. With just seconds to spare, I saved my dying kit from the spoils of a lone remaining fruit bush. That moment was harrowing, to say the least, and for me, it was one of the most memorable gaming moments I had in 2024. I love how Endling's world changes as the game progresses. Early on, natural obstacles block potential places to look for your captured kit, but night by night, they're mysteriously removed, something I initially took as the game artificially opening pathways for you with no rhyme or reason, until you notice how these paths are only opening as humans tear up the environment. I really like how the visuals of the game reflect this change. Initially, the night sky features these beautiful gradients, but as your habitat is torn down, they become less and less spectacular. Upon finding a new den near untouched wildlife, the skies will become pure again, but it won't last long. Also worth noting is the beautiful soundtrack by Manel Gilinglada. Endling is a Spanish game, by the way. It's mostly driven by Manel on the guitar, alongside the cello played by Tina Guo, who played on Austin Wintory's phenomenal Journey soundtrack. The music cues are usually pretty short, but they're really delightful.
I want to end by discussing the story of Endling a little bit. It's quite good, and I want to preface my thoughts with something pretty big. That's right, the first medal of the video is going to be the gold medal for story.
Every few nights, you can pick up the scent trail of your missing kit, which leads you to gathering more information about the scavenger who took it. The story here is actually pretty interesting, but I don't think the way it was presented was that good. You learn about what's been happening with your kit through still images, and I don't think they do the greatest job of conveying what's going on. Once I read more on the story later, it all clicked and I went, oh, that's a good story. But in the moment, I just didn't quite get what was going on. This is probably a scale issue. I feel like these story points would have been better had they been animated instead of static. Beyond the scent trails regarding your lost kit though, I feel there's a lot of storytelling Endling does extraordinarily well. The beginning of this game is phenomenal, and I've decided I don't want to talk about it here. It's a fantastic tone setter that's best experienced for yourself. And the way this game ends is beyond words for me. The final 10 minutes of Endling are just wow. And this game gets the achievement of being the only game on this year's list that made me tear up as the credits began to roll. Speaking more broadly though, I want to say this. For a game about a family of foxes, it has a surprising amount of humanity. As the game reminds you in one of its loading screen tips, there are still kind people. Sadly, the world we built isn't always just, and kindness may not be rewarded in turn. But as we continue to ravage the planet, Endling leaves us with one important message. It's the deeds you do, and the friends you make, that will determine whether our world is still one worth living in. My first game in B tier is the oldest game on this list, and probably the most influential for gaming in general, 2007's Portal. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you already know the gist of it, but a quick recap just in case. At the beginning of Portal, you wake up in a strange testing facility, where you gain a gun that can shoot two connected ends of a portal. You'll need to put your wits to the test to conquer the 19 test chambers of the Aperture Science Lab and receive the cake promised to you by the lab's friendly AI researcher. The portal gun mechanic is simple but well executed, and they do some cool things with it, like dropping a block through a portal to disable a turret, or building up momentum to launch yourself across a room. Portal is short and sweet. I beat the whole game in just one session. I don't mind the length at all, but unfortunately I'm not sure if it has the runtime it needs to fully explore some of its mechanics. Again, there are only 19 test chambers, but you don't actually get access to the full portal gun until chamber 11. Up to that point, you're only able to fire blue portals, while the orange ones are placed for you. Only having 9 levels to play around with the full portal mechanic was a bit disappointing to me. And while the extra mechanics in Portal, like the energy pellets and the turrets, are cool, I can't help but want more. If only there were a sequel that addressed that. Of the mechanics and levels that are here though, I have just a few minor notes. First, there are several puzzles in Portal that require you to bring a cube through a portal, and for whatever reason, I found it very common for the cubes to get stuck on the portals. Overall, it wasn't a huge deal, since you can sort of wiggle the cube around a bit until it fits, but considering how polished the rest of the game was, this seemed like a bit of an oversight. I also have a bit of an issue with how the game deals with you going through portals that flip your orientation. The game handles this by automatically rotating your camera, but the animation is pretty slow, and it was a real problem in certain test chambers where you're meant to pull off portal shots while airborne. I usually didn't have enough time to line up the shot and fire while also dealing with the slow camera. As the game goes on, they start to cut down on places where you're allowed to place portals, which I personally wasn't a big fan of. A lot of the fun I had in the first set of test chambers was just experimenting with different ways I might be able to approach levels, and I wasn't really a fan of how the game closes off its approach later on to make you zero in on one specific solution. The answer to every puzzle just inevitably sort of becomes place a portal in the one place you can place a portal, and I thought that wasn't super interesting. During this section of the game, there are also some weird points at which the game will randomly start loading the next area while I was walking. I'm not sure if this is on all versions of Portal or maybe just because I was playing it on the Switch port, but it was strange and really jolted me out of the game. Last point of criticism here, this game has a final boss sequence of sorts. Without discussing it in too much detail, I wasn't too big a fan. It was essentially just do 4 easy puzzles under a time limit. It felt pretty anticlimactic and slow in a game with otherwise fun puzzles. This could have been a good time to introduce a sick momentum puzzle or escape sequence or something, but ultimately Portal kind of went out with a fizzle. If only there were a sequel that addressed that. Okay, enough talking bad on Portal. There's a big aspect of this game that I've avoided talking about. It's funny. Most of the humor comes from the little robotic voice speaking to you in the test chambers, GLaDOS. She has a bit of a reputation among gaming circles. Honestly, I was a bit surprised how toned back she was in Portal versus what I had seen online prior. She has some funny remarks in this game, but she wasn't quite as off the wall as I was expecting. If only there were a sequel that addressed that. And the presentation of this game is quite nice. The whole oddly sterile and probably evil science lab aesthetic has been done plenty of times. Heck, you can probably see it on this list in Splatoon 3's side order. And a lot of that stems from Portal and its great atmosphere.
It just has the perfect twinge of something is very wrong here, and I love it.
Portal is a great game, and I really enjoyed my time testing at the Aperture Science Lab. The main point against it is probably its length. It feels like we barely got to scratch the surface of what it means to have a portal gun. Not to say I don't value short games. Journey is even shorter, and I put it high up on my 2022 tier list. But Portal feels like a less full, ambitious release, and more like a promising tech demo to what I'm sure will be a great game given even more time in the oven. Maybe a sequel, one day in the far future, might address that.
I had a pretty good time with the first Horizon game, Zero Dawn. The story was great. Following Aloy as she learned how America went from this to this over the course of 1,000 years was really compelling. The reason was basically just Elon Musk, but it was fun to uncover. And the gameplay was pretty good too. Fighting and taming robot dinosaurs is a sick concept, and it was overall executed pretty well, even if I did have some issues with boring story bosses and the lack of ways to scale its mountainous world. The sequel, Forbidden West, takes what worked in Horizon Zero Dawn and expands on it, while also trying to correct some of the problems with its predecessor. And strangely, while everything about Forbidden West on paper is better than Zero Dawn, for some reason I just don't think it's as good. And while I can't pinpoint any one reason why I feel that way, I'll try to touch on a whole laundry list of points during this segment. First, the gameplay. Again, Horizon is all about fighting robot dinosaurs, and they still do that part super well in Forbidden West. Combat in Horizon games is mostly done with ranged weapons like bows and explosive slingshots. You can shoot willy-nilly at robots to slowly lower their health, or you can play smart and attack specific parts on them to expose weak spots, disable their best attacks, or in some cases blow them up. For the second game, they've added a lot of new weapons to try out. Honestly, it was too many for me. Trying to buy weapons in this game gave me major decision paralysis every time, and so I generally just sort of stuck to what worked for me in Zero Dawn. Though I do want to give a shout out to the Shredder Gauntlet, the only new weapon in Forbidden West that I actually used. These work like a boomerang. You throw it at a machine, it tears off part of its armor, and then it comes flying back at you and you have to catch it. If you can catch a disc 3 times without losing it, the 4th throw does massive damage, and these weapons are super fun to use.
While the ranged combat in Horizon is great, the melee combat wasn't spectacular in Zero Dawn, and while the devs really tried to make it better in Forbidden West, it's still not very fun. Aloy now has access to combos she can do with her spear, but against machines they just don't do enough damage to be worth using. Melee combat is generally only useful for knocking the armor off of human enemies before you finish them off with a ranged attack, and frankly I just didn't care about learning this complicated melee system for such a limited use case. Also, the way Forbidden West teaches you about these melee combos is abysmal. They have these melee pits in some of the major cities around the new overworld, and they are very janky. Try to perform a combo and there's a 3 out of 4 chance they're gonna say you did it wrong, even if you follow the instructions they give you to the letter. It's like if you took this Germa clip and put it in a game. The melee pits are just straight up the worst part of Forbidden West in my opinion. I hope these never see the light of day again. Thankfully, the boss fights are really quite good. There are some decent story bosses and some spectacular overworld bosses. The Slitherfangs and the Tide Rippers are some personal favorites of mine. Also, there's this one boss fight in the Burning Shores DLC that is just fantastic, and unfortunately, some of these larger machines tend to knock Aloy down a lot, and she takes her sweet time getting up and back in the action. Not a deal breaker, but kind of annoying. Out of combat, the new overworld of Forbidden West is kinda whatever. At the very least, they fixed my biggest exploration-related issue in Zero Dawn, that mountains only had one way to climb up or down, by letting you climb up basically anywhere in Forbidden West while giving you a Breath of the Wild style paraglider to make your trip down more pleasant. Generally, the devs have tried to pack a lot of stuff into this world, but not much of it is worth seeking out. The collectibles just aren't very interesting, and they don't hold a candle to the incredible data point side quest in Zero Dawn. There are also the Relic Ruins, basically little puzzle dungeons scattered throughout the world. These aren't always super straightforward. While doing my first, I was surprised that I was actually having to turn my brain on in a Horizon game. They're pretty good, though maybe they could be better if they gave me more than 30 seconds before Aloy chimes in with the answer and spoils the fun. The side quests in Forbidden West are okay, I guess. Not many are worth doing, truthfully, but the handful of them that hit really hit. Unfortunately, even with these distractions, the world in this game just doesn't really have a ton to offer. The settlements are especially disappointing, with only a few named NPCs that have actual dialogue, and a host of lifeless NPCs that spit out odd one-liners. And outside of those, the world just doesn't feel very curated. Content is repetitive across the map, and there just isn't much joy to exploring this world. The Horizon series has a bit of a weird history when it comes to release dates, as in basically every single Horizon release got overshadowed by a bigger game. And coming out just 1 week after Forbidden West was a little-known indie game called Elden Ring, which I've been told feels very intentional in its world design despite its scale. The Horizon devs seem to have learned a lot from Breath of the Wild, which released right after Zero Dawn. Hopefully they can learn some lessons from Elden Ring by the time Horizon 3 comes out. And also be a little more cautious with their release dates and try to avoid a situation like this. I've given the story of Zero Dawn a lot of praise. Again, the chain of events that led America to become a land overrun by man-eating robots and settled by smaller native tribes, again, is really well done. But there was just kind of one itsy-bitsy problem I sort of sped past in my 2022 video. Aloy isn't really a good protagonist. Aloy is just sort of a naturally perfect lone wolf character. She never needs to change or accept help because she's super cool and awesome 100% of the time. She looks down upon the native tribes of the land who worship the technology of the old world, viewing them as uninformed simpletons. And then later, when Silence treats her the same way, she acts indignant without reflecting on her own actions, and the game frames her as if she's in the right. Thankfully, Forbidden West does something revolutionary for the series. They give Aloy a character arc! She's a much more interesting character this time around, as we get to watch her grow into a supportive, compassionate leader, assembling a team to stop some evil oligarchs from destroying the Earth a second time. Unfortunately, Aloy's character arc is short-lived. It's pretty much complete a third of the way into the game, but it does have quite a few ramifications as the story continues. Zero Dawn had a pretty clear objective: learn more about the past. But Forbidden West is a lot more complicated than that, with more moving pieces and characters. There's a lot to keep track of, but it all comes together in a satisfying finale. One note about this story is that I was disappointed in the lack of Silence content. This dude is easily the best character in the series, and I was sad to see him take more of a background role in Forbidden West, especially since the tragic passing of Silence's voice actor, the phenomenal Lance Reddick. For what this story is though, I liked it. Not as much as the first game, but it was still pretty fun to follow. So why not? Let's slap on a bronze medal for Forbidden West. Music time! Horizon Forbidden West has a really good soundtrack. The ambient themes are nice, subtle yet very melodic, an approach I'd like to see more in open world games, to be honest. Early on in the game, you can walk in on the Utaro tribe singing this gorgeous choral song, the first of many pieces in this soundtrack that stopped me in my tracks and compelled me to just listen and take it all in. The music in combat is quite good too. The Tide Ripper bosses have this incredible track for these fast-paced fights. My favorite track in the game, though, has got to be this one, which plays in the underground ruins of Las Vegas. This whole area is so enchanting, and the music is a perfect fit for one of the coolest looking parts of the game. That was just a small sampling of great tracks in Forbidden West. This is definitely one of my most listened to soundtracks of 2024, and I have zero qualms in handing it the bronze medal for music. Let's end with presentation. People often use the Horizon series as an example of modern games going for too much realism in their art direction, but honestly, I reject that notion. Yes, in Forbidden West, you can zoom in and see all the pores on Aloy's face if you really want to. But to say that Forbidden West somehow has boring art direction because of its realistic elements is to ignore all of the unrealistic elements that work so well. The world is gorgeous, lit by vibrant hues of purple and orange that you would be lucky to witness in real life. Vegetation is lush, plentiful, and colorful. No matter where you are in the world, you can count on the fact that the ground is probably going to look surreal and beautiful. The animations in this game are also really good, which is probably because everything is mocapped. Not just the big cutscenes or the story-relevant stuff, I mean everything. Even tiny interactions in far-off settlements that most players won't ever find are still mocapped, and it all looks great. There's clearly a lot of care and effort into making Forbidden West look as good as it does, and I simply can't turn a blind eye to it. The gold medal for presentation goes to Horizon Forbidden West. And also, the map in this game stretches all the way to the west coast of America, and you know what's over there? Yeah, that's right, this game's got really good looking water. And not just above the surface, there's a whole world of colorful sea life below too. So yeah, let's also slap on the special medal for best water. To close out this segment, Horizon Forbidden West is a good game. It's usually a pretty fun game with a pleasant story, a really great soundtrack, and it's a feast for the eyes. At the same time though, I just can't seem to think of it as better than its, on paper, worse predecessor. Perhaps it was something about the novelty of playing Zero Dawn on my brand new PS5 that made me think of it so highly. Or maybe at this point I've played so many open world games that they're starting to become stale. I'm not sure what the culprit is exactly, but what I can say is that Horizon Forbidden West is a good time. As long as you're not working on these stupid melee pits, god these things suck. While Mario's adventures in the third dimension have continued to innovate and reinvent itself to great success, his two-dimensional outings haven't been that interesting in a while. It got to the point where the most interesting thing the devs did was turn over course creation to the players to varying levels of success. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, however, marks 2D Mario's first real attempt to live up to the imagination and whimsy of the 3D entries, and man, does it deliver. Right away, you can notice a big difference in how Wonder presents itself against 2D Marios of the past decade. It's so much more expressive. Mario's movements are comical and silly, and he squashes and stretches as if you're part of an old Disney animation. And the backgrounds are so vibrant and lush. They look like places you'd want to live in rather than the sad, empty grasslands of past side-scrolling Mario games. Mario Wonder does a lot of work to convince you that it's something new and unbridled, free from the stylistic chains of its predecessors.
While the first few levels might feel pretty similar to other 2D Marios, Wonder introduces a lot of brand new enemies and mechanics in short fashion. They are these cool birds that shoot straws that create platforms, tall mummy guys that you have to unravel from the back, little batteries that you can turn into weaponized fireworks, and so many more. In contrast, the number of new power-ups is kind of a disappointment. In addition to the classic fire flower, you have the elephant fruit giving you an extra attack, the drill mushroom letting you move through surfaces to avoid enemies, and the bubble flower, which lets you throw a few bubbles you can use to trap enemies or bounce off of to gain some height. These new power-ups are alright. The elephant fruit is a personal favorite of mine, but in such an imaginative game, they really leave more to be desired. Though maybe rather than working on power-ups, the devs were really working on these, the brand new badges. These are really quite cool. You can equip one of these badges at a time, and they all have some different effects. Wonder starts you off easy with the parachute cap badge, which does as the name suggests. But there are plenty of weird ones to find, like the jet run badge, which makes you run like Wile E. Coyote, complete with his signature move of ignoring gravity. There are quite a few badges to collect throughout Wonder, and they do a lot to keep the game fresh. My personal favorites are this badge, which gives you an extra jump against walls, and this one, which gives you a grappling hook. When I don't have any badges in mind for a level, I usually default to these, and they're fun in basically all situations. While the badges can be used in every main level, there are also a few challenge levels designed exclusively around one badge, and they're very welcome additions. In fact, Mario Wonder has quite a few bonus levels in addition to the main get to the end type levels. Some are fun little puzzle rooms, there are quite a few cute music levels, and then there are also the search party levels. So now, if we were to make a tier list of all Mario Wonder levels, the search party levels would go right about, about here feels right. In these levels, you have to collect 5 tokens, and they're hidden in really stupid locations, often requiring you to jump all over the stage looking for cheap invisible blocks, or making you try out every single pipe in an area until you find the right one. I think you were meant to play these with other people online, though I'd never really used the online features, even if I did buy literally every single standee in the shop. The search party courses are like Mario Maker levels designed by 5-year-olds. Really disappointing stuff. Okay, so there's sort of one big thing about this game that I've avoided talking about. That's right, it's the talking flowers. They don't have much of import to say. Not sure why they're here. They have Marvel movie type dialogue, but even Marvel movies are funny sometimes. Okay, so there was maybe another big thing about this game worth talking about too. Every main level, and I mean every main level, has a wonder flower like this. Touch one, and you never quite know what you're going to get with the Wonder effect. They start you off easy with the funky moving pipes, then by level 2 they're hitting you with the singing piranha plants, and then 5 minutes later, oh, there goes the flagpole. Mario Wonder consistently keeps hitting you with these new Wonder effects. A lot of them feel like they could be solid game concepts on their own, and yet they usually don't even last a minute. It's just idea, and it's great. These are so fun. You can tell they weren't lying when they said Mario Wonder had no development deadline by the sheer quantity of different concepts that make each and every level feel fresh. Not all of the Wonders are winners, but most of them are really cool, and the sheer variety of them adds a lot in my book. Unfortunately, a few of the Wonder effects do repeat themselves. Before beating the first boss, you can already encounter repeats of the weird pipes, the bull rush, and the giant hoppos, but they're applied in a different, usually more difficult context, so I don't mind the repeat Wonders all that much. This game also uses the guise of Wonder effects to make some unique boss fights. Bosses in 2D Mario games are usually not very good, to say the least, but Wonder tries to do them better, and they're a bit of a step up, if still pretty disappointing. Next, let's talk about the story. Great, we got that out of the way, so now for the music. While much of Mario Wonder feels like a fresh coat of paint applied to a stale formula of game design, the music in this game doesn't really rise to that level. Which isn't to say it doesn't try. Out of these games, Wonder definitely has the best soundtrack, but I just don't think it's very memorable overall, and I think a big part in that is the heavy usage of computer instruments over real ones. Considering past work by this music team, I think what they made for Wonder just isn't as good as it could have been. But honestly, the weak music is just a small blemish on a game that's otherwise overflowing with charm and imagination. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a really great time, and with so much variety in its gameplay, I never got bored during my 16-hour playthrough, even going so far as to 100% the game. Yes, that meant I had to do this final badge challenge level, which was, it was a little difficult, but it never stopped being fun. Wonder showed me that a 2D Mario could rise to the level of 3D Mario when the devs lock in, and as long as they keep up that momentum moving forward, I'd be happy to jump in for another adventure. Octopath Traveler 2 is like one of those DVD bundles you find in the value bin at Walmart because it's basically 8 games in one. In this game, you play as 8 different characters, each with their own storyline and quests, who team up to help one another on their journeys across the vast land of Celestia. I really enjoyed the first Octopath Traveler game back when I played it on Switch. Its punchy, turn-based combat was a ton of fun to mess around with, and while the stories of its characters weren't phenomenal, there were definitely some standouts. Oh, and the music, holy shit! While Octopath 2 plays a lot like the first game, it's set in an entirely new place with an entirely new cast of characters. The game plays around a lot with genre. Sometimes it's a western, sometimes it's a mystery game. Right next door to the Prison Break chapter is the girl who just wants to become a famous performer. The variety is what keeps Octopath 2 so fresh. But before I go any further, I'd like to briefly talk about all 8 of the main characters and their stories. Hikari, the Crown Prince of Ku, is exiled from the kingdom after his brother stages an assassination and seizes the throne. Hikari is a pretty static protagonist and his story is fairly basic, but I thought it was executed quite well. His quest across the continent to raise an army and retake his kingdom just has really good vibes. It felt a lot like The Lion King, one of my favorite movies. The dancer Agnia wants to leave her small town and travel the world to become famous and bring smiles to people's faces. Like Hikari, her story is pretty basic and a bit directionless, though the final chapter of her story redeems it. It's one of the best sequences of the game. The tone of Agnia's quest is pretty positive, which provided some much needed levity against some of the other characters' dark stories. And speaking of, the scholar Oswald's story starts with him being framed for the murder of his family, before escaping an oppressive prison camp and declaring vengeance on the true killer of his wife and daughter. His story is one of the best in the game, in my opinion. Oswald's descent from loving family man to a heartless husk is heartbreaking to watch. Just one problem with his character, he sort of speaks how you'd expect a 4th grader to write a smart character.
I've yet to solve for the final variable in my formulae.
Particio is a merchant who, after experiencing poverty himself, vows to bring wealth across the world and erase poverty from existence. The vibes of Particio's story are immaculate. He's an absolute cutie patootie and maybe the world's first ethical capitalist. On his way to buy the rights to the steam engine and share the wealth, he also invents the concept of a department store and jumpstarts the music industry. Also, we'll get to combat later, but Particio has a pay-to-win mechanic. Phenomenal character, no notes. Temenos is a cleric, but he doesn't quite fit the archetype. He's basically a detective who actively questions everything and everyone, including his own faith, and his information gathering process isn't always peaceful. This is gonna be a really unpopular opinion, but I honestly didn't care for Temenos that much. Despite how lore-critical his story is, his chapters were pretty dull, and he sort of just comes off as a cringy self-insert. Also, I just want to quickly note some weird undertones with Temenos. His official title is an Inquisitor, and when he visits the native beastling tribes in Totohaha, he says he's going to teach them how to speak even though they already have a language, and that's not. Throne, on the other hand, has one of the better stories in the game. A street thief trapped in a worldwide crime syndicate, Throne's goal is to kill the leaders and gain her freedom. Her story has some great twists, and it was my favorite until her final chapter, which... The ending to her story kind of fell flat for me, unfortunately. It's shock value without the foreshadowing needed to make it land, in my opinion. Her last chapter turns what was one of the most grounded stories into one of the most fantastical, which was a bit disappointing. Ochet's story is simple but really fun. Her home is threatened by a great calamity, so she sets out to find and unite a set of great divine beasts and... wait a minute. She isn't too much of a character, to be honest. Much of her dialogue consists of her going, I like meat. But her chapters are a lot of fun. Like Agnia, she's another silly character who breaks up the streak of darker stories. Also, her theme is one of the best songs in the game. You gotta listen to this. Last up is Casti, an apothecary who wakes up adrift at sea with no memories of her past. As she travels the continent and helps those in need, she starts to learn more about who she was and why people seem so afraid of her. Casti's third chapter has some of the best storytelling in the game, and the final cutscene of her story is just wow. One critique, I don't like how the villain of her story sort of turned evil off screen. The rest of Casti's story is so good though that it absolutely evens out. One big point of failure for Octopath 2, and this applies to the first as well, is that they don't really give any good reasons why these 8 people are traveling together. The rest of the storytelling and world building in this game is quite good, so it's very odd to see that the critical element of why these people are working together is missing. But the party members do interact. There are the side stories where the travelers pair up. These are fully voiced and plot relevant, though only tangentially in most cases. And also they're pretty short. I wish these were more substantial. During everyone's main quest, other characters can also weigh in on what's been happening, though these aren't voiced and they kind of feel like an afterthought. Octopath 2 waits until its ending sequence to really get these characters to talk together, and this part's great. If you've been paying attention, everyone's stories have little bits and clues pointing to an overarching villain, and the finale is this great world-hopping adventure where everyone's talking to each other and it's awesome. I just wish that we had more scenes like these throughout the game. That finale is the highlight of the game, but there are lots of great moments that I think deserve to be commemorated. Octopath 2's story reaches nowhere near the artistic heights that Endling hits, but it's still quite fun, so I think a distant silver medal is in order. Octopath 2 has a really cool gameplay hook. You can recruit any NPC to join your party in battle. And also you can challenge any NPC in combat to gain skills. And also you can interrogate any NPC for information. And also you can rob any NPC. And also you can capture any monster in battle, many bosses included, and sick them on opponents. With so many mechanics, it may seem a bit overwhelming, but thankfully you don't have to engage with them all. I personally had a lot of fun picking everyone's pockets first thing after stepping into a new town, but I didn't often recruit people into my team. The beauty of Octopath 2 is that you have tons of options for how you want to approach the game. There's also this cool class system where you can give all your travelers access to a second moveset in battle. And speaking of, the battle system in the Octopath games is really simple but really, really fun. Find your enemy's weaknesses and break their shields. Then while they're stunned, use your boost points to power up your attacks and deal massive damage. The combat is fast and punchy, no need to wait around for long animations like in Pokémon, and it feels great in the moment. Yet despite how simple the combat is, it can get really strategic. Once you start equipping the travelers with new classes, the opportunities for some truly broken strategies open up. A fun one early game is to debuff a boss as much as possible, then use Casti's Drastic Measures skill. The more debuffs you added, the more damage you'll do. One of my favorite builds late game is to have Particio use a skill that makes any buffs you add to yourself affect the whole party. And Particio happens to have a skill that lets him dodge an attack for free. Charge that up all the way, and then you can give your whole team 4 free dodges. And why not? Use the skill that lets Particio move again and give the whole team 4 more dodges. But the best part is, the bosses are designed around you doing stupid stuff like this, and they throw crazy stuff right back at you, hiding the turn order, changing up their weaknesses, or slowly taking down your max HP. The final boss of Octopath 2 is an absolute triumph, and I'll talk about it in vague terms. They give you free reign to wail on it with your crazy party build, while the boss disables your healing and can permanently kill your travelers, making it a frenetic fight to the finish. They nailed this sequence, and it absolutely deserves the special medal for Best Boss Fight. Okay, we need to talk about this game's soundtrack for a second. There is not a single miss in this score. The character themes, the area themes, the battle themes are all so rich and melodic, as if they were part of a long-lost soundtrack of an RPG for the SNES, freed from the constraints of MIDI and given new life with a sweeping orchestra. If this soundtrack doesn't make you feel something inside, what are you even doing? And the battle tracks, oh man, they are so good that they often made me put down my controller just to listen and rock out. There's one more song in this soundtrack that I want to play for you, but before that, we need to talk about presentation first. Hopefully you'll agree with me after watching so much footage of this game. Octopath 2 is gorgeous. The 2D sprites on these 3D environments look so great, and the tilt-shift blur makes every vista look like a little diorama. And there's some really impressive sprite work with the bosses, though the transition between the chibi sprites in the overworld to the menacing boss sprites in battle is a little silly sometimes. Like, no, that dog did not look like that a second ago. There's really not much to say here. Octopath 2 looks beautiful 24/7. This silver medal is well earned. Now, back to that last song. When I first entered the Leaflands, I knew I was in for a treat. The aesthetic of this place is right up my alley. I love the outdoors, and it looks so striking in the Octopath art style. The Leaflands, for me, was a place that marked an end to many parts of my journey. It was the last of the 8 areas I entered, it was where Casty's tale ends, the final traveler whose story I completed, and it's where you go to begin the ending sequence of the game. The song for this place could have been a melancholic forest theme, but instead it's full of life and optimism. Like Route 10 in Pokémon Black and White, it asks you to reflect on your journey and think of all the good memories you made along the way. So this medal should go without saying. And yeah, of course Octopath 2 is getting this one as well, the gold for music. In summary, I really enjoyed Octopath Traveler 2. It's a phenomenal RPG with a solid cast of characters, some great stories, intense turn-based combat, and a brilliant soundtrack. It's not a perfect game. I didn't even mention the random encounters, and yeah, those aren't great. But when it hits, it hits. It's definitely not for everyone. If you're not an RPG guy, this game will likely not sway you. But for me, it filled a big turn-based RPG-shaped hole that I haven't been able to fill in a long time. Earlier in this video, I said that Portal felt like a promising tech demo of a longer, more ambitious game, and that's precisely what Portal 2 is. Portal 2 has a lot on its predecessor. Way more levels, plenty of new mechanics, a much grander story, just an overall larger scope in general, and about 5 times as many death threats from GLaDOS. The core gameplay element is still the same. You've got a gun that can fire 2 connected ends of a portal. Most mechanics from the first Portal are back, though a few things have been fixed up to make the gameplay experience more pleasant. Cubes no longer get stuck on portals, and the camera flips much faster after traveling through sideways portals. Both really welcome fixes to some things that bugged me about the last entry. Without much delay though, Portal 2 starts introducing a fleet of new ideas. It starts off with these cool bridges of light that you can walk across. Put a portal where the bridge meets the wall and suddenly your options open up. There's also a new cube that can redirect a thermal discouragement beam, and the game wastes no time putting you to the test with it. One of the most memorable puzzles in the early game involves you simultaneously redirecting 3 lasers through a single portal. Plus, there's these new springboards that launch you at high speeds, sometimes requiring you to quickly place portals in mid-air to keep your momentum. These new mechanics are pretty good. I really love the bridges of light, even if they're pretty much absent from the middle of the game. But I was even more impressed by the blue and orange gels. The blue gel makes whatever it coats really bouncy. Hilariously, you can even coat cubes and turrets with it to make them go flying. And any ground coated with orange gel makes you move extremely fast. Combine that with the blue gel and with the portals, and suddenly you've got all the ingredients you need to make some incredible momentum puzzles. And also it's a Splatoon reference. Lots of puzzles have you place some portals to move the gel around to the right places, then once it's all set, build up some momentum and soar across the room. There's a third type of gel too, this white gel, though I think I'll leave at least this one a surprise for the 3 people who haven't played Portal 2. I'll just say that the white gel is also really cool, though in a different kind of way compared to the blue and orange gels, and we'll keep it at that, though maybe we shouldn't show this one to the Splatoon players. While all of the new puzzle mechanics in Portal 2 are really darn good, there unfortunately were still a couple things that bugged me. For one, there are several points in this game where the answer on where to place your next portal is to zoom in and look for obscure little spots you can portal on faraway walls. Considering how tight the rest of the puzzle design is in Portal 2, these moments felt like cheap gotcha solutions that didn't mesh. As with Portal 1, there are also some segments where the game stops you and randomly starts loading. And no, I'm not talking about the elevators between test chambers, I mean during escape sequences with tense music that really feel like they shouldn't be interrupted so suddenly. Like honestly, take a look at this.
This way.
Thankfully, these moments are far and few between, so they don't detract from the multitudes of thoughtful puzzles and the high-speed aerial action of Portal 2. It's no wonder why so many call Portal 2 one of the best puzzle games ever made. I think that legacy is well earned, and so I'd like to hand it the first gameplay medal of the video. The bronze goes to Portal 2. A brief interlude before talking about story, I'd like to address presentation and music. Aperture Science has been through a bit of a rough patch between games. The first Portal has a pretty consistent visual style throughout, but the sequel has a lot more going on artistically, as you get to explore much larger chunks of the facility. The devil's in the details here. Portal 2 rewards you for looking at every little thing. Unlike the first Portal, the sequel actually has quite a bit of music. Rarely would I say the soundtrack is exceptional, but it does the trick. Though I will say, the track playing on the part where he kills you is quite good. If you were on the internet, like at all in the early to mid 2010s, surely you know a line, or several, from Portal 2. This game's got a lot of dialogue. Characters are speaking to you practically all the time, which I don't mind at all, because these characters are great, and because it's in service of a pretty ambitious story. There's a lot more going on in the narrative this time around, including a bit more information about what Aperture Science is, while still keeping the organization shrouded in an air of mystery. The pacing is a bit weird though. The second act with all of this Aperture Science history takes a while to get going. There are also some mysteries that the game sort of flippantly shrugs off. Portal 2 takes place 9 a little after the first Portal. The story just kind of ignores how exactly the Aperture facility went from this to this, and also how I'm still alive. And while I'm not asking for all the mystery to be stripped away, I'd have liked to get a little more information, just a taste, on some of these questions. If only there were a sequel that addressed that. Well, okay, so there kind of is, but even then it seems like there's a little bit more work to do. Don't worry, I know just who to call. These guys are great at sequels. We gotta talk about some of the characters in this game too. GLaDOS is back from the first Portal with a vengeance. 10 times as silly and murderous than she was last time. Every line of hers is a treat. There's never a dull moment with her. But GLaDOS isn't simply just comic relief. Portal 2 takes a bit of a dive into her background, something I was not expecting but was very pleasantly surprised by. She has a really interesting arc throughout the whole game, and lying between her flurries of verbal abuse was some phenomenal writing. It sure helps that her voice actress, Ellen McLean, sells her lines really convincingly. I was a bit skeptical after the first Portal, but after playing Portal 2, I can confidently say that GLaDOS was my favorite character in any game I played last year, and that calls for a medal. New to Portal 2 is Cave Johnson. I don't want to talk about him much due to spoilers, but he's voiced by the guy who does the yellow M&M, among a few lesser roles, and he's got some phenomenal lines. And there's one more character we gotta talk about. Wheatley. This guy is great. It's hard not to love him, and a big part of that is because of Stephen Merchant, his voice actor. To me, video game voice acting often feels too perfect. Rarely do you hear characters stutter or add fillers or even breathe between words for that matter. Wheatley does all three, constantly, because he's a nervous little chatterbox voiced with a surprising amount of realism for a tiny animated British ball.
Do you understand what I'm saying at all? Does any of this make any sense? Just tell me, just say yes. Okay, what you're doing there is jumping.
I recognize that not all games are trying for this style of voice acting, and that's completely alright. But there was something about Stephen Merchant's Wheatley that really stood out to me out of all the voices I heard while gaming last year. So I'd like to award Portal 2 with another special medal for Best Voice Acting. I was a bit nervous going into Portal 2, to be honest. I don't seem to have the best track record when it comes to playing critically acclaimed masterpieces. But Portal 2 was absolutely worth the hype, with gratifying puzzle action and witty writing at the top of a long list of the game's achievements. I think there's still a little room for improvement, and maybe sometime in the distant future, if they're interested, I'd like to see what Valve has planned for a third entry and— Oh, come on!
All right, let's get to work.
Oh, damn it!
That's what you get.
In Hades, death isn't necessarily a bad thing. At the beginning, you're going to die. A lot, just like any good roguelite, Johnny Upgrade included. Unlike a lot of those games though, dying in Hades is what pushes the story forward. Every time you're sent back to the House of Hades after meeting your demise, you have the opportunity to converse with a host of colorful mythological characters, each of them offering up more information about why you, Zagreus, Prince of the Underworld and Son of Hades, are trying to escape the many layers of hell and reach the surface. Take a minute to upgrade your base abilities, choose a weapon, kill this funny little skeleton, and then it's time to try again. Hades plays like a pretty simple hack and slash. Zagreus is a joy to control. His movements are fast, gritty, and tight. On your way up to the surface, you'll receive the help of several gods, each of them giving you different effects to help you defeat the foes Hades has sent to stop you. Poseidon's boons add knockback to your attacks, Artemis's boons can give you the chance to hit for critical damage, and Aphrodite's boons can weaken enemy attacks. Honestly, there's not any bad choice here. You can make a pretty fun setup with the abilities of any god, though I do have my favorites. Athena's deflection boons are especially handy. Killing all the shades in a room can give you different things. Cash to spend at Charon's shop during your run, an enchantment from Daedalus to improve your weapon, an upgrade to an existing boon, more health, or one of the many different permanent currencies you can use between runs. Sometimes you might even be able to earn 2 god boons in a room, though be warned, the god who you don't pick first might not be too happy about it. Between encounters, you might have a chance meeting with Sisyphus, or you might get a chance to listen to a ballad from the nymph Eurydice. There's a lot of randomness in Hades, which I really love. It keeps everything feeling fresh. In addition to the random elements, there are also plenty of options the player has to change up runs too. There are 6 weapons to choose from, each with a different playstyle. They start you off with the sword, which I don't really like, but the bow, the shield, and especially the spear are a lot of fun. Each weapon has 4 different upgrade trees that give it alternate abilities. You can turn the shield into a homing frisbee with the aspect of Zeus, or you can use the aspect of Achilles on the spear and zoom around the map. This one's a personal favorite. There's some incentive to try out all the weapons, with the game giving you bonus currency on a different weapon for each run. After beating your first run, you also have access to the Pact of Punishment, which lets you make your runs harder in exchange for better rewards. Now, Hades is a tough game. My first escape wasn't until attempt number 21, and I didn't see the credits roll for a while longer. There are plenty of options here, from giving enemies an extra hit, adding a time limit, or forcing you to sell one of your boons to advance to the next region of the underworld. I love this mechanic. Forcing you, the player, to choose how you want to fill the heat meter and make your runs harder is a great idea. It stops the difficulty from going stagnant like in Splatoon 3 Side Order. Instead, the difficulty curve goes up with you, maintaining the challenge. It's another good motivation to change around your weapons too. Each weapon has its own heat meter, so if the difficulty is too much, just switch to something else. If you're stubborn and only want to play the spear with the aspect of Achilles, that's fine, I guess, though after a certain point, it's not very advisable. I want to briefly touch on the boss fights of Hades. In addition to all the mini-bosses you might run into, you'll have to clear these 4 in order to escape to the next layer of the underworld. 3 out of 4 of them I really enjoy. Megara and the Bone Hydra make for some great climactic fights to Tartarus and Asphodel, and the final boss is a great time. Depending on the build you made, it's either an easy victory lap or a frantic fight for your life, and it's a lot of fun either way. The Elysium boss fight is definitely my least favorite. As a whole, I don't really care for this area very much, with many of its enemies having shields and the ability to respawn, and the Theseus and Asterius tag team fight at the end just didn't click with me. I wish they had more attacks they did together instead of them just sort of doing their own thing. Especially considering their, relationship. They're just really good friends. As with the rest of the game, these boss fights also get changed up a bit.
especially if you activate extreme measures on the Pact of Punishment, forcing you to fight against powered-up versions of all the bosses.
This is honestly my go-to option to fill my heat meter. The harder versions of the bosses are a ton of fun. The powered-up version of the final boss fight is brutal, but beating it was an immense thrill, having used all my revives and down to just a sliver of my health by the end. If not for the final boss of Octopath 2, this fight would have taken the best boss medal. I do have a small critique with all of the boss fights, in that they often have periods of invulnerability between phases, which can be especially annoying when you end up wasting your best moves. With that little gripe out of the way though, I just want to say this game is addicting. It's fast, it's exciting, every run is something different, and the game does a lot to encourage you to mix things up. I'm over 50 runs into Hades now, and I could easily see myself doing 50 more. A great candidate to receive the silver in gameplay. Hades has quite a bit going on story-wise. At the center of this tale is learning why Hades' son, Zagreus, wants to escape the underworld so bad. While it sets up good reasoning for the roguelite structure of this game, I honestly wasn't too impressed by the content of the main story. The central mystery going on gets solved pretty quickly, and when you do finally start beating runs, your story reward is just about a minute of new dialogue, often not revealing much at all before sending you back to the House of Hades for another run. There are a handful of flashback scenes that expand on the story more, but frankly, I just don't think there's enough. Overall, Hades has a problem with telling rather than showing, and the central story suffers quite a bit from it in my opinion. Zagreus isn't the only character in Hades with a major storyline though. Practically every NPC you can talk with has some sort of questline attached. From working to reunite Orpheus with his wife, besting Thanatos in a killing contest, or getting to know the housemaid Dusa. I really love the characters of Hades. They feel like fresh new interpretations of the classic Greek myths. There's tons and tons of great dialogue, delivered by a really superb voice cast. Progressing their storylines though can really be a pain at times. For most characters, you'll need to gift them nectar to build a bond between them and Zagreus. After a certain point though, you're not able to gift any more until you fulfill a specific condition. You're rarely able to actively progress that condition. For most of these characters, you just sort of need to talk to them a ton until you get a specific voice line. Sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll give you the voice line you need pretty fast. You're only able to talk to each character once per run though, so for other characters, you might need to complete lots and lots and lots of runs to get the right voice line so you can progress their story. This is a random element of Hades I don't particularly care for. I think they should really do more to prioritize voice lines related to active quests, rather than hearing more gossip from the gods. On a more positive note though, the art direction of Hades is excellent. I love the character designs in this game, drawn by my whole generation apparently. There are honestly too many spectacular designs to talk about, although I think the goddess of night, Nyx, deserves a special mention, just some really amazing work. The environments are also gorgeous. The backgrounds and visual elements of this game look like an old ink tapestry, colored and brought to life. The isometric style of Hades lends it a really great and unique visual language, especially when combined with all of these beautiful hand-drawn elements. Overall, the game is too fast-paced for you to really ponder the astonishing work by the art team, but if you take a minute between encounters to take it all in, your eyes will be well rewarded. The bronze for presentation goes to Hades. Let's wrap this section up with the music of Hades. The voice actor for the main guy, Darren Korb, also happens to be a pretty good composer. His score for Hades is largely built off a base of Mediterranean instruments. One of the most prominent is the Turkish bağlama, which you can hear all over the soundtrack. But at the same time, Hades also takes lots of inspiration from rock music, and it's this Mediterranean rock mashup that gives the game such a unique sound. The further you go into each world, the more the rock elements build, until the boss fight, always scored with some max intensity metal. There's even a few diegetic songs too. Whenever you're lucky enough for Orpheus to be in a singing mood, it makes for a really special moment.
Close enough, the light we can't see, but don't betrays the better of me.
I'm not going to play any of my favorite tracks here, since they all play at the end of the game. But the final boss track, as well as the tracks that play in the preceding cutscene and credits, make for a phenomenal sequence of music. The music of Hades didn't quite hit the highs that Octopath 2 did for me, but it's a very solid second place. The silver medal for music goes to Hades. Hades is a remarkably good time. The story is not the most earth-shattering thing you'll ever experience, but its speedy, tight action gameplay, along with the abundance of options to keep runs fresh, and the impeccable art and music make it one of my favorite gaming outings of 2024. It's taking all my strength not to join the early access of Hades 2. Though I'm sure it'd be another great time, I know it'll be even better once it's done. But that's not a problem. The first Hades on its own has given me more than enough to sink my teeth into for the near future. On the 19th of August, I received a DM from someone asking if I wanted to play a certain co-op game with them, to which I replied, "Nope, I'm going to Spain for 4 months so I can play good games like..." After I got home though, I was in the appetite to play something a little bit better, so I decided to take this mysterious individual up on their offer. And the next day, we officially began our playthrough of It Takes Two. Before I get any further though, I'd like to formally introduce my partner in crime on this playthrough.
Hello everybody, my name is Chaos Controller 101, or just Chaos for short. And don't worry, it's not a typo, so no need to correct me in the comments. Anyway, I had the distinct pleasure of playing through the entirety of It Takes Two with my good friend Coco.
It Takes Two is about this couple, Cody and May, whose relationship has, to put it lightly, seen better days. After their daughter, Rose, learns that they're going to get divorced, she makes a wish on a strange red book for her mom and dad to get along. Unbeknownst to Rose, her wish worked, and her parents have been turned into miniature dolls. If they want to get back to their own bodies, they'll need to put their issues with one another aside and get a heck of a lot better at, as this weird book likes to say, collaboration! It Takes Two is easily one of the best co-op experiences I've ever seen in a game. Rarely are there ever segments where you can get by on your own. You'll need to be in close communication with your partner throughout, especially since you two often have different roles to play. Early on, May gets a head of a hammer, while Cody gets a set of nails. If Cody throws a nail at a wall, May can grab onto it with her hammer and swing on it to gain some distance. It's such a great introductory sequence. There are plenty of great moments with just this one mechanic, and it culminates in a great boss fight. And then, with not even an hour spent with the hammer and nails, It Takes Two gives you new toys to play with. Now, Cody has a gun that spurts heavy globs of flammable sap, and May can shoot flaming arrows. Put them together, and... This segment has some great moments. Some puzzles using the sap to weigh things down, then blowing it up at the right moment, mixed with some explosive combat and even a chill boat ride. And then boom, now you're in space! May gets anti-gravity boots and Cody has a gadget that lets him grow and shrink. This segment has even more great puzzles and some gravity-defying platforming that feels straight out of Super Mario Galaxy. Hold on, now it's a top-down dungeon crawler. Cody's an ice wizard and May's got a sick fire sword. And now we're each controlling one side of a paddle boat trying to fight off a giant kraken. And now May is singing to distract the deadly snake-like microphones while Cody uses his Captain America shield to cut them down. And now Cody is rewinding time on an exploding clock while May is platforming on the shrapnel. The greatest thing about It Takes Two is just the sheer variety of gameplay. This game never lingers on one idea for very long. It's got the same pacing as a Mario game where it's just idea, and there's not a dud in the pile. Whether it's launching each other through the pipes of a vacuum cleaner, guiding your partner through the right path while rail grinding, taking a timed math test, having fun with a little elephant, or DJing a set at a nightclub full of dancing glow sticks, there's zero shortage of great ideas in It Takes Two. I've taken care not to spoil the best one, but let's just say something funny happens at the end of this section on the plane. While collaboration is a key point in the game, there are also tons of fun Mario Party minigames you can compete in against your partner. Whack-a-mole, shuffleboard, a snowball fight, an ice skating race, volleyball, the Google Chrome dinosaur game, straight-up chess, and so many more. I especially liked laser tennis. Our game went on forever. I pulled through though, maybe because I had plenty of practice during this crazy boss fight while they gave Koas the easy stuff.
Okay, but let's be real. Your platforming skills on the Hell Tower were not exactly what I would call exceptional, dude.
God, that stupid Hell Tower. Another great thing about It Takes Two is just how much you can interact with. Want to ride the toy train around the cardboard medieval village? Yeah, sure, why not? The random Etch-a-Sketch on the table? Of course you can draw on it.
That lava lamp? Yeah, obviously you can fight with your partner about which color it's gonna be, like we're Asuka and Shinji. Wanna play a pretty song on the piano? It Takes Two is just so damn fun to play. It's constantly throwing new concepts at you that really put your skill, wits, and collaboration to the test. And it does so with so much joy and color and whimsy. It's straight up 3D Mario levels of creativity, which is insane considering who published this game. If you've been keeping track, you may have noticed that all of the story, music, and presentation medals for this video have already been handed out. And despite that, It Takes Two is so good on a gameplay level that I can't think of any better game to take the top spot on this list. The gold gameplay medal absolutely goes to It Takes Two. The story of It Takes Two isn't spectacular, but it does the trick. The core concept of a struggling couple turned into dolls to work out their relationship through a variety of toy-themed worlds feels straight out of a Pixar film, but there are a few things that hold it back from reaching that level. You follow Cody and May as they try to figure out ways to undo the spell that trapped them inside Rose's miniature dolls. Their progress is very often halted by Dr. Hakim, the red book Rose is holding at the start of the game. The guy is flamboyant, to say the least. His dialogue is extremely campy, which isn't something that personally bothered me all that much, but I totally understand if others are put off by him. Though let's be real, if you're knowingly playing a game by this guy,
fuck the Oscars, you know?
You probably should have expected a lot of camp. For Cody and May, he becomes sort of a common enemy that brings them together. Whatever works, I guess. You'll start to see quite quickly that Cody and May need the help though. They're both pretty imperfect people. Unfortunately, I don't think they quite get the level of character development they both fully needed throughout the game. There are bits of self-reflection every now and then, tempered by a return to old habits. A great cutscene with the two of them bonding will be undercut minutes later by a snide remark from one of them, even towards the climax, which made the ending feel a lot less earned. Speaking of the ending, I thought It Takes Two was pretty lacking in that department. There isn't really a climactic gameplay sequence or boss fight, the game just kind of ends. And the couple never have much reflection on how their strained relationship has been affecting their daughter, something that the final cutscene hinges pretty heavily on. Turns out there was a cut level that addressed both of these points. Most of it looks done too, so it seems a bit odd it wasn't included in the final release. Now, while I've been mostly critical of It Takes Two's story, there is one part of it that I really want to highlight. It Takes Two has an incredible snow level. It takes place inside of a snow globe in their house, and it really delivers on both story and gameplay. Dr. Hakim tells the duo that they've lost attraction to each other, so for this segment the main mechanic is magnets. May gets a blue one and Cody gets a red one. It's a stupidly simple mechanic, but they do so many cool things with it. May can operate a crane to transport Cody around buildings, Cody can shoot red magnets on an ice wall for May to latch onto, and later on, you can use your magnets to keep each other safe amidst the harsh winter winds. A big part of this level is ringing the bell towers, which gradually defrosts this charming winter village. And keeping with the rest of the game, there's tons of stuff to interact with here with your magnets. As the level goes on, they gradually begin to reveal the significance of this snow globe to Cody and May, and there's a fantastic story beat between the two at the end of it. This level is probably the highlight of It Takes Two, but don't just take my word for it. I know Koas loved it just as much.
Oh man, where do I even start? Okay, if you know me, you know that the way a game utilizes its music means everything to me, and this level utilized it perfectly. Every time you ring one of the bell towers, another instrument gets added to the background music. Then once you eventually ring them all, the full piece serenades you as you explore the once frozen town that's now filled with all of its old residents again. The vibes are just immaculate, and you can definitely tell the developers are proud of the amount of things to do within this area. You can skate around the lake helping a mother turtle find her babies, you can explore the town eating everything you can find within food stalls, or just relax on a pull-out chair and admire all of your hard work with a gorgeous view. There were also these swing sets that you could push each other on, and one of the residents of the town asked for a push, and you can push him so hard that he launches off the swing into the darkness of the void below. I mean, what's not to love about this place? It has everything.
I've been holding on to this last medal for quite a while, and It Takes Two's snow globe level absolutely earned it. The medal for best level. Let's talk about the music for a quick minute. It Takes Two has an okay soundtrack. It's shockingly minimalist towards the beginning, considering we're playing as little dolls seeing the world from a child's perspective. But later on in the game, the music really starts to pick up. The level inside the Cuckoo Clock has some great tunes, but the composers really go all out during the actual music-themed level. There's a fun part during this level where you can make some music of your own, and it actually becomes the theme for the next section of the level. Such a cool idea. Overall, I was a bit disappointed with the lack of real instruments in this score. While the composers kill it with the electronic pieces, the orchestral ones just don't hit the same with a computer-synthesized orchestra. Again, considering who published this game, they certainly have the funds. Even with a MIDI orchestra, the main theme of It Takes Two is still quite nice. You may or may not be hearing it in this video quite soon. Let's cap it all off with presentation. I adore the art direction of It Takes Two. Have you ever flipped through one of these? Imagine for a minute all of the colorful photography and intricate toy landscapes of the I Spy books. Yeah, that's the aesthetic of It Takes Two. They push the miniature theming to its absolute limit. There are so many beautiful and imaginative landscapes that all work so hard to give you a certain feeling. The jellyfish inside the tree and the spider segment of the garden level were especially stunning, but the best looking part of the game has got to be the cuckoo clock. From the moment we stepped into this massive Nightmare Before Christmas city, we knew we were in for something special. There are some incredible sights inside the clock that deserve your attention. Unfortunately, the scenes with actual humans don't meet the same visual quality as the rest of the game, but it's a worthy trade-off for the rest of it practically injecting childhood nostalgia straight into my bloodstream. Again, I already handed out all the presentation medals, but It Takes Two is a notable runner-up on that front. It Takes Two is nothing short of incredible. It's a game with no shortage of ideas, constantly shuffling you along to its next set of great mechanics. And its multiplayer element adds so much. I can't imagine my playthrough would have been the same without Koos. And speaking of, he's got some concluding remarks for us.
This game was an absolute joy to play through. From the creative settings to the intricate puzzles and even the crazy gadgets that help you along your journey, this game truly makes you appreciate just how strong of a bond you have with someone. I really hope this segment motivates you guys to call up one of your close friends or family members and just spend some quality time with them, because I've never been more thankful to the connections I've made in my life than I did after finishing this game with Coco.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is the type of game you really ought to play with someone you're close to, because it'll help you appreciate them even more by the end. Even if they're not the greatest gamer in the world, that's alright. The learning curve will be well worth it, because I know your playthrough of It Takes Two is something you'll cherish for a long, long time.
They have to stay together.
I'll help you find attraction again. I swear this must be that book's fault.
Use that, Cody!
Oh, you want some of this? Big boobs incoming! When something collapses, something new can be built. And then the attraction can grow freely. You're up, May. Give it hell.
Oh my gosh, we made it!
Good teamwork.
Thanks for having my back, Cody.
And that's a wrap on my 2024 tier list. No matter if you just watched specific sections or the whole video on 2x speed, thanks again for watching one of these videos. I'd say funding is provided thanks to viewers like you, but that's alright though. I'm happy to keep making these out of passion because I love talking about good games, even if these videos take a while to make. On that front, I'm not sure if future videos like this will be as lengthy and in-depth. I might try and revise the format to protect my own sanity. As always, I'm extremely vain and love to see this number tick up. Maybe one day we'll hit 3 whole digits. And if I had any bad takes, please let me know in the comments so I can make petty remarks about you in future videos. Alright, that's all from me. I'll leave you with a quick awards ceremony. Catch you next year.